And actually, I mean, this is really kind of nothing new for Donald Trump. This is the way he speaks. This is the way he puts thoughts into sentences, as different and as, I don't know, different as can be.
And before you respond, Ashley, let me just correct myself, because I don't want to misquote Donald Trump. When I mentioned the car comment, he says they want to stop you from having cars. I think I might have paraphrased it a little bit differently. So I did want to fact check myself in that moment, but to Jose's point, Ashley, your reaction to what we're hearing.
Jose is right that this is how Donald Trump speaks. This is the sort of rambling and grievances and sort of digressions you might expect at a rally or, you know, an interview with a friendly news channel. But like Tim, I was surprised that this is a moment that broke through in the country. Regardless of what you thought of the verdict, what you thought of the case, nearly every American is paying attention and is aware that he was convicted on 34 counts. The former president is now a convicted felon. And I was sort of surprised that he came out and didn't really seem particularly prepared and was kind of rambling. His campaign clearly was very prepared in the minutes after the verdict. They had a very clear message. It is not, I want to be clear, it's not necessarily an accurate message that he is a political prisoner, but they had this very clear message that he is a political prisoner and he was being sort of persecuted on behalf of the country, and if it could happen to him, it could happen to any of you. And that's not what we heard when he came out today in this sort of rambling news conference that still seems to be going on. And it's just surprising because it sort of reminds me of during COVID when Donald Trump had all eyes of the nation on him because Americans were terrified and desperately tuning in to these briefings. And instead of having a clear message about the science and about the health, he treated them as rating bonanzas. And again, you're seeing him here. He's certainly making some points, but I don't know if these are the most trenchant points for him politically in a moment when all eyes are really on him.
I want to bring in Ankush Kaduri. He's a former federal prosecutor. As we've been listening into some of these remarks from Donald Trump following his guilty verdicts, I'm just wondering what stands out to you in what you're hearing. And I assume some of these words could be used against him as his case continues through the sentencing phase.
Yeah, I mean, look, this was the usual whining and lying. He's been doing this for weeks as the trial has been going on. The only thing that was new to me was this business about how he's claiming people want to stop us from having cars or whatever. This trial seems to have taken a toll on him. He looks quite low energy, to borrow a phrase he used to use. He looks slumped over. He doesn't have the excuse of having been in court all day today. It's 11 a.m., 11:30 now. And every day in court, he was saying the same stuff. It was just as incoherent. He would come out of court, ramble the same stuff, yada, 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 went out and, you know, just blah, blah, blah every day. It wasn't persuasive then. It's not persuasive now. It's full of lies, as Anna flagged. I'll just add one more, which is his claim that the election law expert was precluded at the last minute from testifying is false. In fact, They knew for months that the judge was not going to allow him to testify on the things that they wanted him to testify about. What happened at the trial is that Trump's lawyers tried to do it again, and the judge said, I already told you that this isn't going to happen. So that's also false, in addition to the many other falsehoods. And also, like, you know,
in fact, he could have still testified. They didn't say he couldn't testify. There were just some limits to what he could testify about, limits that are pretty standard when it comes to who can tell a jury what the law is, right?
That is correct, right? It is not the place of any sort of witness or an expert witness to instruct jurors on the law, which is effectively what his lawyers wanted to happen. Trump also misrepresented what would have happened if he had taken a stand on, as you mentioned, he could have taken a stand in his own defense. He said, oh, you know, if I'd taken a stand, the judge was going to let the prosecutors raise every single bad thing I'd ever done in my life. That is false, too. In fact, the judge said that if he took the stand, he could be crossed and impeached on, in particular, the legal judgments that he's been on the receiving end of over the last year or so that involved him, judges or juries concluding that he had lied. And like the E. Jean Carroll defamation case, that's a case in which the jury concluded he had lied. The civil business fraud case brought by the New York Attorney General, that is a case in which the judge concluded he had lied. It is very standard for things like that to be available to prosecutors to use on cross-examination. He was not mistreated at all. He only has himself to blame for doing the things that the prosecutors would then have been allowed to raise.